Welcome to West Texas Droning, episode number 4. So last time we were discussing pre-flight operations. In fact, the last two times we talked about pre-flighting your airspace, weather, stuff like that. And then we talked about pre-flighting your aircraft and having checklists, developing or using checklists to do your pre-flight. This time we're going to talk about one more thing you need to pre-flight before you go fly your drone, and that is to pre-flight the pilot. Yes, sir, that is a thing. And there is a checklist that the FAA will tell you about called PAVE, and it's kind of an acronym for things to check when you're going to go fly. And number one, that P stands for pilot. Of course, A is for the aircraft, V is for the environment, weather, airspace. E is external pressures, which we'll talk about down the road as we go from episode to episode. So P stands for pilot. Well, what does that mean? Well, you want to make sure that you're in compliance with the federal aviation regulations as far as medical condition for flying. Now, so far for lightweight drones under 55 pounds, we can just go fly them. Just anybody can. Now, there are heavier drones that require you actually get a medical certificate before you can get your, I think it's if you're going to do agricultural drones, heavier drones, you have to have actual medical certificate, just like a pilot would have to have. But the regs say no person manipulate the controls of a small unmanned aircraft or act as a remote pilot and command, visual observer, or direct participant in the operation if they know or should know that there's a mental or physical condition that would interfere with the safe operation of the system. And of course, one of those that's stressed here, and we'll talk about that in extensive amount, is that a person manipulating the flight controls of a small unmanned aircraft system or acting as a remote pilot and command or visual observer must comply with the provisions of Federal Aviation Administration 9117. Now, that Part 91 is general aviation aircraft. And so what that actually says is that no person may act or attempt to act as a crew member of a civil aircraft, and this, of course, is referring to drones, since that's where we picked this up. You can't act as a crew member within 8 hours after consumption of any alcoholic beverage, when you're under the influence of alcohol, while using any drug that affects your faculties, or while you have an alcohol concentration of 0.04 or greater in your blood or breath specimen. Alcohol concentration means, of course, alcohol per deciliter of blood. So you have to obey the same rules that an actual aircraft pilot has to. 8 hours between bottle and throttle was the old saying we used to use. Now, for my personal choice was that I didn't go within 12 hours of bottle or throttle. That was my personal limitation. And then I tempered that even farther with there's a maximum amount, maybe 1 or 2 drinks within that 12 hours. And I'd quit a lot earlier, maybe 13 hours if I'd had more than just a couple of drinks. But one of the things you have to remember is that if there's an incident and you're arrested and the police check you out and you are intoxicated or your blood does exceed that 0.04 concentration of alcohol, you're going to get in trouble just like if you were driving an airplane. It's going to be the same ramification: fines, loss of license, all kinds of disciplinary actions that could be a factor. So remember that. Remember that 0.04 blood alcohol. Now, there are other things to consider if you're going to fly your drone. And that is over-the-counter medications or anything that a doctor prescribes you. They can cause drowsiness. They can cause issues that would make you less able to conduct your responsibilities as an aircraft operator for a small UA. Other things to consider: hyperventilation, stress, fatigue, dehydration, heat stroke, drugs and alcohol. All of those things can affect pilot performance, and you need to go through and evaluate yourself before you go fly to make sure none of these are a factor that are affecting you, and none of these could detract from your performance. The FAA and the government loves acronyms, and it has one called I'm Safe, and that stands for your pre-flight or your checklist for yourself. You're not ill, you're not medicated, you're not stressed, you don't have alcohol in your system, you're not fatigued, and your mind is right. You're not emotionally upset, or you don't have your head somewhere else. And that's an important thing, because there are some hazardous attitudes that you need to be aware of, and you'll study these, and if you've already taken your test, you're aware these are discussed and are questions on your FAA 107 written. These are the attitudes they want you to know about, you should know about, and how to prevent them, or have what alternative or a cure for them is. Number one, anti-authority. The guy that says, hey, I don't care what the reg said, nobody's going to tell me, it's my drone, I'm going to operate it the way I want to. And the antidote for that is, of course, understand why they wrote those regulations and the purposes behind them. They were probably reasons that you haven't thought of, and that when you operate your drone, you operate it within the law. Impulsivity, people that just do things without thinking about it. You need to take the time to consider what the consequences of your actions are going to be. Another bad attitude is invulnerability, saying, hey, it's not going to happen, don't worry about it, it's not going to happen to me, that always happens to other guys. 9 times out of 10, people with that attitude are the ones that get bitten. We're all vulnerable. Another bad attitude is the macho man. I can do it. Hold my beer. I can pull this off. That is a bad way to be, because as soon as you get arrogant and above the law is going to get you. And the final hazardous attitude is resignation. You're saying, what's the use? It doesn't make any difference. That's not going to make one bit of difference on the outcome to whether I do this or do that. And the answer is, yeah, you can make a difference in safety. Your attitude makes the difference. So you want to check yourself for these 5 hazardous attitudes, and if you have them, use the antidote, leave them at the door. Don't display those when you're going to operate your drone. All right, so we're all checked out in our head and our body, so let's go fly. Not too often we get these wonderful cloudy, cooler days here in the fall that are nice to enjoy. The ceiling this day was 10,000 foot, so I was well below that. Didn't get more than, well, at one point I got 400 feet above the ground, but I was well clear of the clouds, and you can see we had great visibility this day. KP index was low, the winds were reasonable, maybe about 8 or 9 knots, 10, maybe dusk and, a gust up to 10, 15, something like that. Nothing bad. It was just a nice, beautiful day to go out and fly around a little bit. This was taken on the 1st of November, and on the 2nd of November, West Texas white-tailed deer season opens up, along with turkey season. And so you have to, of course, not only check your airspace for aircraft, but make sure if you're in deer hunting areas, you know where the hunters are, they know where you are, and just Wait till there's no hunters present if you're going to go bouncing around the countryside. It's rude to disrupt somebody's hunt by scaring off the deer with a noisy truck. And it's good for the people with guns to know where you are. I set my drone distance limitation to about 1,500 feet because that's about the end of visual line of sight. And so when my drone gets close to 400 feet above the ground or more than 1,500 feet away, it stops and warns me, hey, you're going outside the limit. That way it prevents you from violating the visual line of sight. Here I thought I'd go ahead and pop up a couple hundred feet to have a better look around with the video. On a clear day, you can see quite a ways here in West Texas. Getting down, making a little run across the treetops to take a view up the hill here. And coming back in to set her down again. And then we landed it, and we take an opportunity to thank you for stopping by West Texas Droning. The drone is operated by a FAA Part 107 certificated pilot, and the background music you hear is composed and recorded by the site creator, so all rights are reserved there. We ask you to subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up, a like, and by all means, if you have anything to add that we've said on here, we welcome your input. The more the merrier, and the better information and more we can get out, the better. So thank you for stopping by. Incidentally, if you're interested in all things West Texas, I want to invite you to visit a good friend over at a place called the West Texas Slant. And proprietor of that podcast provides great interviews with interesting subject about West Texas and some really interesting people that you'd love to hear about here in West Texas. So by all means, go over and give them a visit. I'll put the address to their website down in the link in the description of this video. And in the meantime, we surely stop you for stopping by, and God bless.